Ryan stood at the edge of his property and watched the bright horizon of Nova Ridge. The twin suns were rising slowly, spreading gold and silver light across the endless plains. His home stood proudly in the middle of the land. It was not large or fancy. It was simple, clean, and built by his own hands. The walls were made of reinforced glass stone, the kind that could survive the desert storms. A thin layer of solar panels covered the roof, feeding quiet power to the home systems. The air smelled fresh, with a light trace of metal dust carried by the morning wind. For Ryan, this land was freedom. After years of working as an attorney on the inner colonies, he had grown tired of endless laws and greedy councils. He came here to live peacefully, to work his garden, and to read old books under the suns. His nearest neighbor lived several kilometers away. That distance made him happy. He liked silence more than company. His home had a security fence powered by sunlight. The soft hum of its energy field gave him a sense of safety. It was not a weapon, just a line of protection that kept unwanted drones and wild animals away. But peace rarely lasted long in human settlements. Even on faraway planets, humans brought their habits and rules. In Nova Ridge, a group called the Home Organization Authority, or HOA, controlled most of the colony. The group had started with good intentions. They wanted clean streets, organized trade, and fair maintenance. Over time, however, their power grew. The leader of the HOA, a woman named Mara, began adding new rules every month. She decided what color houses could be, how tall fences should stand, and when people could use outdoor lights. She collected fees for everything. Most residents followed her orders out of fear or habit. Few dared to resist her authority. Ryan had moved to a piece of land right outside the HOA's official boundary. When he arrived, he checked the colony's property records carefully. His plot was independent. It did not belong to any organized district. He made sure to register it directly with the colony's central office. For him, that meant freedom from endless interference. But to Mara, it was a challenge. She believed that no one should live in Nova Ridge without joining her organization. When she learned about Ryan's independence, she decided to pay him a visit. The first meeting happened on a quiet afternoon. Ryan was in his garden planting blue leaf vines that could grow in dry soil. He heard the sound of a hover car approaching. It was white and shining, with the HOA symbol painted on its side. The car stopped near his gate and Mara stepped out. She wore a neat uniform with golden lines on the shoulders. Her face carried the sharp look of someone used to giving orders. She did not smile as she walked to the fence. "Good afternoon," Ryan said calmly. "Can I help you?" "You must be Ryan," Mara said with authority. "I am Mara, head of the Nova Ridge Home Organization Authority. I am here to welcome you to our community." "I appreciate the welcome," Ryan replied, "but I believe my property lies outside your district." Mara frowned slightly. "All residents of this colony are under the HOA's care. We handle maintenance, safety, and community harmony. You will need to register your home with us and pay the standard membership fee." Ryan wiped his hands on his work gloves and looked at her carefully. "I understand your system, but I have checked the records. My land is not part of your managed zone. I prefer to maintain it myself." Mara's eyes narrowed. "That is not how things work here. Every household must follow the same regulations. It keeps the colony organized. Individual control causes disorder." Ryan smiled softly. "Disorder is sometimes the beginning of progress. I am comfortable maintaining order in my own way." She did not like that answer. Her tone hardened. "If you refuse to register, I will have to report you for violating community structure laws." Ryan remained calm. "You may report what you wish. I will respond with the proper documentation." Mara's lips tightened and she turned sharply toward her car. As she left, her hovercar's engine made a loud whine as if echoing her anger. Ryan watched her go without emotion. He had met people like her before, people who loved rules more than reason. He did not fear her. He only hoped she would lose interest soon. A few days passed peacefully. Ryan continued his work, fixing his irrigation lines and reading in the evenings. But one morning he noticed small shadows moving over his land. Looking up, he saw 3 surveillance drones hovering above. They carried the HOA emblem. Their cameras blinked red as they scanned his property. Ryan sighed and walked into his workshop. He activated his remote jammer, a legal device that blocked external signals. The drone stopped moving and floated down harmlessly to the ground. He sent a message to the HOA office, requesting removal of unauthorized drones from his airspace. He attached a copy of his land rights certificate and a polite warning that further intrusion would result in legal action. That afternoon, the drones were gone. But the next day, Rian received an official letter from the HOA. It accused him of disrupting community observation systems and demanded immediate compliance. He could not help but laugh. Instead of responding with anger, he wrote a short legal reply, quoting the colony's property law section 12, which protected private airspace over registered land. He sent it directly to Mara's office. 2 days later, a notice appeared on the colony's public board. It announced a community meeting to discuss threats to unity and safety. Everyone in Nova Ridge knew it was about Ryan. Curious citizens gathered at the hall when the day arrived. Ryan decided to attend. He did not want trouble, but he also did not want lies to spread. When he entered the hall, the crowd went silent. Mara stood at the front stage holding a digital tablet. Her voice was loud and confident. "We have a serious problem," she said. "A new resident refuses to join our organization. He blocks our safety drones and denies our laws. Such actions weaken the unity that keeps our colony safe." Several people murmured in concern. Some looked at Rian with confusion. Mara continued, pointing toward him. "This man believes he is above the rules. We must decide what kind of community we want. Do we allow selfish isolation, or do we protect our shared harmony?" Ryan waited for her to finish before he stepped forward. His voice was calm and clear. "I respect this colony and every person here. I only ask for the same respect in return. My land lies outside HOA boundaries, as proven by the colony's official map. I do not refuse harmony. I only protect independence." He opened a small projection pad and displayed the digital boundary lines for everyone to see. The map glowed in the air, showing the clear separation between his land and the HOA zone. Murmurs spread through the crowd again. Mara's confident expression faded slightly. She had not expected him to bring evidence. One elderly man in the crowd stood up. "He is right," the man said. "That land was never under HOA control. My brother helped survey it years ago." More people began whispering. Some nodded in agreement. Ryan lowered the projection pad and bowed his head politely. "I wish no conflict," he said. "I came here to live peacefully. I hope we can respect each other's rights." Mara forced a smile, but her eyes showed frustration. "We will review the documents," she said stiffly. "For now, this meeting is over." As people began leaving, many stopped to greet Rian. Some thanked him for standing up to the HOA. Others simply smiled, encouraged by his calm courage. Ryan left the hall quietly and walked home under the evening sky. He knew this was not the end. Mara was not the kind of person to let go of a challenge. At home, he sat by his desk and looked out the window. The suns had set, and the stars of the outer system shone brightly. His small garden glowed softly under the solar lamps. The sight gave him peace. Yet deep inside, he sensed that his life in Nova Ridge was about to become far more complicated. Power rarely surrenders without a fight. He closed his eyes and whispered to himself, "Law protects those who stand firm." Then he went to rest, ready for whatever the coming days would bring. The next morning started quietly. The suns were climbing above the horizon, and the wind carried a gentle hum through the energy fence. Ryan prepared his breakfast while reviewing colony law reports on his tablet. He liked to keep himself updated, even though he had promised himself a peaceful life. Old habits from his days as an attorney were hard to leave behind. He enjoyed reading the law because it reminded him that knowledge was power, and power was protection. He was sipping tea when a message alert blinked on the wall screen. It was from the Nova Ridge Council office. The message was short and formal. It read, "An official complaint has been filed against you by the Home Organization Authority. You are accused of obstructing community operations and refusing lawful registration. You are required to attend a hearing next week." Ryan read it twice and then smiled slightly. He expected this to happen. He closed the message and returned to his breakfast. He was not angry. He had faced many such tactics before in larger colonies. He knew how to deal with power-hungry people who used rules to control others. Still, he felt a small sadness that peace never lasted long, even in distant worlds. Later that day, he walked through the local marketplace to buy supplies. The market was built under a transparent dome where traders sold fresh crops, solar batteries, and small machines. As Ryan moved between the stalls, several people recognized him. Some looked away nervously. while others greeted him with quiet respect. A man selling fruit waved him over. "You are the man who stood against the HOA, right?" the man asked. Rian nodded. "Yes, I only defended my rights," the man smiled. "Good, someone had to do it. They have been making everyone follow new rules every week, even for small things like paint colors or garden shapes." Another woman nearby joined the conversation. "You are brave. We all wanted to say something, but we were afraid. They fine people for everything now." Rian listened carefully and thanked them. He did not see himself as a hero. He only wanted fairness. But as he walked back home, he realized that others were quietly watching how he handled the situation. If he failed, they would lose hope of ever standing up to the HOA again. When he reached home, he noticed that the drones had returned. This time there were 5 of them flying in formation above his house. They were scanning his roof and fence. He frowned slightly and activated his legal recorder, which documented every second of the intrusion. After a few minutes, he spoke clearly into the recorder. "Unauthorized surveillance by HOA drones recorded over my private property. Violation of Colony Airspace Regulation Section 12. He then activated his jammer again. The drones fell silent and drifted down onto his land. He took a picture and sent it directly to the Colony Security Department along with a short report. He also included a copy of his property registration, clearly marked outside HOA control. He did everything according to law. He never wanted to act without evidence." 2 hours later, his communication screen flashed again. This time it was a live call. Mara's face appeared on the screen. Her expression was sharp and angry. "You have no right to interfere with HOA equipment," she said firmly. "Those drones were performing lawful inspection," Ryan replied calmly. "You have no right to inspect my land. The colony registry shows my property lies outside your authority." "You're being difficult," she said. "You are making things harder for everyone." "I am protecting what is mine," Ryan answered. "I harm no one and I break no law." Mara's tone turned colder. "If you continue to resist, I will bring this to the highest level. You will regret standing against me." Ryan's voice remained steady. "You may bring it to any level you wish. I will respond with law, not threats." The screen went blank as she disconnected. Ryan sighed and leaned back in his chair. He knew she was not finished. People like Mara rarely stopped when they felt challenged. They believed authority gave them the right to shape the world around them. Over the next few days, rumors spread through the colony. Some said Rian was planning to build his own community. Others said he was a secret agent from the central government. Mara's followers spread false stories to turn the colony against him. A few neighbors who once smiled at him now avoided eye contact. But others quietly supported him. Someone left a small box of fresh fruit at his gate with a note that said, "Keep standing. You are right." One evening, Ryan received another message. This one invited him to a second community meeting at the Central Hall. He decided to attend again, not to argue, but to show that he was not afraid. The hall was full when he arrived. Mara stood at the front once more, speaking to the crowd. She raised her hand dramatically. "This man continues to disrespect our laws and harmony. He blocks our drones, refuses our protection, and endangers our safety. Is this the kind of example we want for our children?" Several people murmured in agreement, but many stayed silent. Ryan waited until she finished and then stepped forward. "I do not block safety," he said in a calm voice. "I only block unlawful intrusion. I respect peace and I want it as much as anyone here." He turned on his projection pad again, displaying images of the drones recorded over his home. "Here is the proof. These devices entered my private zone without permission. According to Section 12 of the colony law, that is illegal. I have followed every rule required by the main council. If the HOA claims authority beyond its borders, then it is they who break the law, not I," the crowd whispered among themselves. Mara looked uncomfortable, but she tried to hide it. "You twist the law to serve yourself," she said. Ryan replied, "I read the law so that it serves justice, not control. If you disagree, let the council decide." An older woman in the audience spoke up. "Maybe he is right. The HOA should not go beyond its limits," another man added. "He is not harming anyone. Why do we waste time on this?" Mara looked around, realizing the crowd was no longer fully on her side. She forced a smile and ended the meeting quickly. "We will let the court handle this matter," she said. As the people began leaving, a few approached Rian. They shook his hand and thanked him for speaking with courage. He simply nodded, knowing the real battle was yet to come. The next morning, an official notice arrived at his home. It was from the colony court. The HOA had filed a lawsuit against him, accusing him of disrupting community order and refusing to follow regulations. The hearing was scheduled for the following week. Rian read the notice carefully and placed it on his desk. He then opened an old metal box and took out his black attorney robe. It had been years since he wore it, but it was still in perfect condition. He looked at it for a moment, remembering his days on Earth's Supreme Legal Academy. He had once promised himself never to return to courtroom battles. But now it was clear that peace would not come without a fight. During the week before the trial, Rian prepared his case with calm precision. He reviewed every law and document related to colonial property rights. He made copies of his land registration, communication records, drone evidence, and all messages exchanged with the HOA. He arranged everything into neat digital files. Outside his home, the colony's life continued as usual. Farmers tended their crops, children played near the domes, and delivery drones passed through the sky. But Rian noticed that more people were paying attention to him. Some even came to ask for advice about their own property issues. He helped them quietly, explaining their rights and how to handle the HOA without confrontation. His calm manner inspired trust. On the evening before the court hearing, Rian stood in his garden under the glowing sky. The suns were setting, painting the clouds orange and silver. He looked at his home, his fence, and the land he had built with his own hands. It was more than just property to him. It was the symbol of freedom and fairness. He knew that if he lost the case, Mara and the HOA would gain more power. But if he won, every resident would learn that no authority was above the law. The night was quiet. Rian sat at his desk, checking his notes one last time. He rehearsed his statements, focusing on logic and respect. He would not use anger. He would not use pride. His strength would be reason and truth. When morning came, he put on his formal black robe. The fabric felt heavy but familiar. He looked into the mirror and saw not just a man defending land, but a man defending principle. He smiled slightly, took his files, and stepped outside. The suns were rising again, and their light touched his shoulders as he walked toward the colony's central courthouse. People watched him pass. Some nodded in encouragement, others whispered softly. Rian kept walking, steady and confident. He was ready for what lay ahead. He knew that this was more than a simple legal battle. It was the beginning of a change that Nova Ridge had needed for a long time. As he entered the courthouse, the doors closed behind him with a quiet sound. The hall was filled with curious faces. Mara sat at the front with her assistants, wearing her usual confident smile. But deep down, she did not know that the man she was suing was not just a landowner. He was a trained attorney, ready to face her with knowledge and truth. The colony courthouse stood in the center of Nova Ridge, built from pale white stone that shone under the twin suns. The building was simple but carried a sense of authority. Long glass windows reflected the light of the sky, and flags of the colony fluttered quietly above the entrance. Inside, the hall was full. People from every part of the settlement had come to see what would happen. Most had never witnessed a real legal trial before. The air buzzed with curiosity and quiet tension. Rian walked through the main doors wearing his black attorney robe. His steps were calm and his face showed no fear. In his hands, he carried a small case filled with legal files, evidence, and his digital tablet. He had reviewed every law and section related to the case during the past week. He was ready. At the front of the hall sat the judge, a tall man named Judge Laren. He had a kind but firm face and a reputation for being fair. On one side of the room sat Mara and her two assistants. They wore neat uniforms with the HOA emblem on their sleeves. Mara looked confident and proud. She glanced at Rian and gave a small smile that carried both challenge and insult. On the other side, Rian placed his case on the table and took his seat. When the judge entered, everyone stood. After a short greeting, the trial began. Judge Laren spoke first. "We are here to settle the case between the Nova Ridge Home Organization Authority and citizen Rian. The HOA claims that the defendant has refused to follow community laws and disrupted lawful inspections. The defendant claims that his property lies outside HOA jurisdiction. Each side will present their evidence. We will begin with the plaintiff." Mara stood up. Her voice was loud and sure. "Your Honor, the HOA was created to protect unity and safety in this colony. Every resident must be part of it. Mr. Rian has refused to register his property. refused to pay community fees, and interfered with our inspection drones. Such actions are a danger to harmony and security. We request the court to order him to comply with HOA laws and pay the required fines." Judge Laran nodded. "Thank you. Defendant, your response." Ryan rose slowly and faced the judge. His voice was calm and respectful. "Your Honor, I am not against unity or safety. I respect laws, but I also respect the truth. My property lies outside HOA boundaries, as shown in the official colony registry. I have the documents to prove it. The HOA has no legal authority over my land. Their drones entered my airspace without permission, which is a violation of colonial property law. I only acted to protect my rights as a citizen." The judge leaned slightly forward. "Do you have evidence of these claims?" "Yes, Your Honor," Ryan said and opened his digital tablet. The large screen behind him lit up, showing maps, registration documents, and digital signatures from the colony's central office. "These are the official coordinates of my property. As you can see, the HOA boundary ends here." He pointed to a red line. "My land starts here." There is a clear gap between the two. These documents are verified by the colony registrar. Mara's assistant whispered something to her, but she quickly raised her hand. "Your Honor, that map may be old. Boundaries can change when new areas are developed. Mr. Ryan's property lies near our district, and therefore it falls under our authority." Ryan kept his voice calm. "Your Honor, the HOA cannot change boundaries on its own. Only the Colony Council can do that, and there has been no such order. I also have a letter from the council confirming my land status." He displayed another document on the screen. The audience began to whisper. The proof was clear. Judge Laran studied the evidence carefully. "The documents seem valid," he said. "Do you have any response, Ms. Mara?" Mara hesitated for a moment before speaking. "Even if his land lies outside our map, our drones were performing safety inspections for the benefit of the community." "We have the right to ensure security," Ryan replied firmly but respectfully. "Your Honor, performing inspections without permission is against the law. No organization can enter private property without notice or legal reason. I recorded the drones flying over my land. Here is the video." He played the footage showing the drones hovering above his house. The judge watched silently. When the clip ended, the evidence was undeniable. Mara looked uncomfortable. Her confidence began to fade, but she tried to regain control. "Your Honor, this man acts like he is above the community. He disrespects the system that keeps us safe." Ryan turned toward her. "I respect systems that follow justice, not those that misuse it. I do not reject order, but order must not destroy freedom." A quiet murmur spread through the audience. Many nodded in agreement. Judge Laran tapped his table to bring silence. "Both sides have presented strong statements," he said. "We will now take a short break. The court will resume in 1 hour." As people began leaving the hall, small groups started discussing the trial. Most sided with Ryan, impressed by his calm logic and clear evidence. Others whispered that the HOA had been overstepping its power for years. Ryan stayed seated, quietly reviewing his notes. He had not come here to win fame. He only wanted truth to be seen. During the break, Mara walked to the hallway with her assistants. Her voice was low but angry. "He is more dangerous than I thought," she said. "He knows the law too well. We need to find something that can weaken his case." One of her assistants replied nervously, "But his evidence is clean. We have nothing against him." Mara's eyes turned cold. "Then we must find something, or we will lose everything." When the session resumed, Mara tried a new tactic. She accused Ryan of altering documents and creating false boundaries. She claimed that the registry had errors. But when the judge called the colony registrar as a witness, the truth became clear. The registrar confirmed that Ryan's land was indeed outside HOA control. Mara's claim fell apart instantly. The judge turned to Mara. "Do you have any proof that the registry is wrong?" She hesitated. "No, Your Honor, but there must be some misunderstanding." Ryan replied, "There is no misunderstanding, only misuse of power. The HOA has extended its reach beyond its limit. That must stop." The courtroom fell silent. The judge made notes and then looked up. "Mr. Rand, your argument is based on law and evidence. Ms. Mara, your claims lack support. The court will issue an initial decision tomorrow. Both parties are required to return for the final ruling." When the trial ended for the day, Ryan left the hall surrounded by murmuring citizens. Many came forward to thank him. Some said they had also been forced to pay unnecessary HOA fees. One man said, You have given us courage to speak. Rian only nodded and reminded them to always use the law, not anger. That evening, Rian returned home tired but satisfied. The suns were setting and the air carried a peaceful glow. He made himself a simple meal and sat in his garden. He thought about the hearing and the way Mara had tried to twist the law. He knew the battle was not over. People like Mara rarely accepted defeat easily. But he also knew that truth was on his side. The next day, the courthouse was even more crowded. Word of the trial had spread across the colony. Farmers, workers, and traders filled the seats. Mara entered the room with a tight smile, trying to look confident. Ryan arrived calmly, carrying his files as before. Judge Laren began the session. After reviewing all documents, testimonies, and legal records, the court finds that Mr. Ryan's property lies outside the HOA boundary. The drone's actions were unauthorized and unlawful. The HOA has exceeded its authority. He paused for a moment as the room grew silent. However, to maintain peace, I instruct both parties to respect clear borders and avoid interference in each other's zones. The HOA must update its maps and submit them to the council for approval. The hall erupted with quiet applause. People whispered to one another in excitement. Ryan bowed respectfully. "Thank you, Your Honor." Mara clenched her fists under the table but forced herself to smile. "Your Honor, may I appeal for a review?" she asked. The judge replied firmly, "You may file an appeal with the Colony Council, but unless new evidence appears, the ruling stands." Ryan turned to face Mara. His tone was calm. "This could have been avoided if respect had guided your actions instead of control. I hope this teaches us both the value of boundaries." Mara did not respond. Her eyes were filled with frustration and anger. She gathered her papers quickly and left the hall. Her assistants followed her in silence. Outside the courthouse, a crowd waited for Ryan. They greeted him warmly. Some shook his hand, others simply thanked him. For the first time, the people of Nova Ridge felt that someone had stood up for them using reason, not rebellion. Ryan thanked them but kept his words short. "The law protects us when we stand together for truth," he said. When he returned home that evening, he looked at his land with quiet pride. The solar fence hummed softly, and the garden swayed under the warm breeze. He sat on the porch thinking about what had happened. He knew that the fight was not completely over. Mara had too much pride to accept defeat. But for now, peace had returned to his small corner of Nova Ridge. He opened his tablet and wrote a short report summarizing the trial. He planned to send it to the colony archive so that future settlers could learn from it. His report ended with a single line: "Freedom begins where fear ends, and law begins where justice lives." As night fell, Ryan looked up at the stars. He felt calm knowing that he had done what was right. He was ready for whatever came next, but deep in his heart, he knew Mara would not stay silent for long. Ryan returned to his home after the trial, feeling the weight of the day lift slightly from his shoulders. The suns were low on the horizon, casting long shadows across the plains. The energy fence glowed faintly along the edges of his property, creating a soft line between his land and the open world beyond. Though the court had ruled in his favor, he knew that Mara's pride and determination would not allow her to simply accept defeat. Power and control had been the core of her life, and losing authority over even one plot of land was a blow she would not forget. That night, Ryan sat at his desk reviewing the court documents once again. His eyes scanned every line of the HOA's filings, looking for anything that could give him a hint of their next move. He had seen ambition like Mara's before. People who demanded control often tried to hide their mistakes, cover their faults, or manipulate others. While the law had favored him today, the danger was far from over. The following morning, as the suns rose and bathed the land in gold, Rian stepped outside. A small drone he had installed for monitoring purposes hovered silently near the corner of his property. It was designed to watch for any trespassers or unauthorized activity. While he rarely needed it, he liked the reassurance it provided. As he adjusted its sensors, a sudden notification appeared on his tablet. It was a message from a distant neighbor who lived near the edge of the colony. "Ryan," the message began, "you may want to check the HOA's records. There are some files that were never meant to be public. Mara has been hiding certain reports. I don't know if it is legal, but it seems important." Ryan's brow furrowed. Hidden files often contained the truth about someone's intentions. He thanked the neighbor and quickly accessed the records he could legally obtain. Hours passed as he scrolled through the data, and the picture that emerged made his heart beat faster. Mara had been using HOA funds not for community improvements but for personal gain. Luxury supplies, rare energy crystals, and private construction projects were all secretly funded by the fees collected from residents. The evidence was clear. Every purchase, every transaction, every document could be traced back to her. Rian leaned back in his chair, taking a deep breath. He understood the situation fully now. Mara had not simply tried to control him out of duty to the community. She had acted out of greed, and her attempts to dominate the colony were driven by selfishness. The revelations were dangerous, but they were also powerful. Knowledge, after all, was the strongest tool a human possessed. He spent the next 2 days organizing the evidence. He created a clear timeline of Mara's misuse of authority, arranging each document in order and marking every suspicious transaction. His experience as an attorney made the process straightforward. He was methodical, precise, and patient. By the end of the second day, he had compiled a complete dossier that could not be easily ignored. Once he had finished, he activated his communication system and sent a secure copy to Judge Lauren and the Colony Council. Along with the files, he included a concise letter summarizing the findings. He explained that while the HOA had legitimate authority over certain areas, the council had the right to investigate misuse of funds and improper enforcement. His letter suggested that a full audit of the HOA's records be conducted immediately. After sending the documents, Ryan took a moment to step outside. The suns were setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and violet. He walked through his garden, noting the way the plants had grown since he first arrived. Even in tense times, life continued. Birds with small silver feathers flew low across the plains, and the wind carried the faint scent of wild herbs. He felt calm despite the storm he had just unleashed. The next morning, the Colony Council summoned Mara for questioning. The announcement was made publicly, and citizens began to gather near the council hall, eager to witness the events. Many of them had experienced the HOA's strict rules firsthand, and a sense of anticipation filled the air. Mara arrived in her usual white hovercar, her face composed, but her hands shook slightly as she stepped out. Pride and fear clashed visibly in her expression. Inside the council hall, Mara faced a series of questions. Ryan had provided all the evidence, and the council's members were thorough. They asked about financial records, purchases, and reports. At first, Mara tried to deny everything. She claimed the documents were mistakes, that the funds were necessary for colony maintenance, and that residents had approved every expenditure. But the council had the evidence in front of them, presented clearly and logically. Every claim she made was disproven by the records Ryan had organized. The council grew stern. "Mara," one member said, "it appears that you have misused community funds for personal projects. You have not only exceeded your authority, but you have also placed yourself above the laws you were meant to enforce. This is unacceptable." Mara's face turned pale. She tried to speak, but the words faltered. She had believed that her control over the HOA and the residents would protect her. Now, confronted with undeniable proof, she had no defense. Her assistants avoided her gaze, realizing that loyalty to her could no longer shield them from responsibility. After several hours of questioning, the council made a decision. Mara would be suspended from her position as head of the HOA, pending a full investigation. Her assistants were also temporarily removed from authority until the audit concluded. The council also instructed that residents be informed of their rights and that no further interference with private property would be allowed without legal justification. When the ruling was announced publicly, the citizens of Nova Ridge gathered near the council hall erupted in quiet celebration. They had long felt the pressure of strict rules and arbitrary fines. Now, a sense of fairness and relief spread through the community. People began to talk openly about their experiences, sharing stories of unnecessary penalties and restrictions. They realized that they were no longer powerless. Ryan had shown them that truth, reason, and persistence could challenge authority. Rian, however, did not seek attention. He returned to his home, walking slowly through the plains. The suns were high and the air felt lighter than it had in years. He paused at the edge of his property and looked toward the distant hills. For the first time, he saw the colony not just as a place of rules, but as a community of people capable of fairness and courage. Over the next week, He visited several residents who had previously been silenced by fear. He helped them organize their property documents, showing them how to protect their rights without confrontation. Many were surprised by his calm guidance and the ease with which he explained complex laws. "I never thought law could be so simple," one farmer said. "I thought it was all rules meant to punish us," Ryan smiled. "Law is not meant to punish. It is meant to protect. When people understand it, they can use it to live freely and safely." Meanwhile, the HOA building, once a symbol of control, was now quiet. Mara and her assistants had left their posts, and the remaining staff worked under temporary supervision. Residents watched from a distance, realizing that power without accountability could not last. The colony had learned a valuable lesson. Leadership required transparency, honesty, and respect for boundaries. As days passed, the council published a full audit of the HOA's finances. Every hidden transaction was revealed. Mara's luxurious personal projects, funded secretly through resident fees, were exposed to the public. Citizens felt a mix of anger and relief. Some were angry at being deceived, but most were relieved that justice had been served. Discussions began about how to organize the colony in the future, emphasizing cooperation, fairness, and accountability rather than fear and control. Ryan continued his quiet life. He maintained his garden, repaired solar panels, and read old books in the evenings. But now neighbors came to greet him, offering help with repairs or simply chatting about colony life. For the first time, he felt that Nova Ridge was truly a place where people could live freely. One evening, as the twin suns dipped behind the hills, Ryan stood by his fence and looked across the plains. Children were running along the paths near the colony domes, laughing freely. Farmers tended their crops without fear of arbitrary fines. Traders carried their goods openly, and a gentle calm filled the air. He realized that the colony had changed, not because of a single person, but because humans had the courage to stand for what was right. Ryan returned to his house and wrote a short note to the colony council, summarizing his observations. "The people of Nova Ridge are capable of fairness and cooperation when given freedom and knowledge," he wrote. "Authority must serve justice, not greed. Transparency protects peace and honesty protects trust." He sent the note securely and leaned back, feeling a sense of completion. The revelations had shaken the colony, but they had also strengthened it. Mara's attempts to control and manipulate had failed, and the citizens had learned that law and truth were more powerful than fear. Ryan had only guided them, but his actions inspired confidence and courage. As night fell, the stars shone brightly over Nova Ridge. The air was filled with the quiet sounds of life continuing, soft whispers of wind, distant animal calls, and the gentle hum of energy systems. Ryan looked at the sky and thought about the future. Challenges would come again, but the colony had learned a crucial lesson. Freedom was precious. The following days in Nova Ridge were filled with a sense of cautious optimism. Ryan continued his quiet life on his property, tending to his garden, checking the solar fence, and reading books in the evenings. Yet the colony itself was changing. Citizens walked taller, spoke louder, and carried themselves with newfound confidence. For the first time, they felt that their voices mattered and that their rights could not be ignored. Ryan had not only defended his own land, but had inspired others to understand and protect their own. The HOA building, once bustling with activity, now had a subdued energy. Mara's suspension remained in effect, and the remaining staff were under temporary oversight from the Colony Council. Orders that had once been arbitrary and strict were now carefully reviewed. Residents noticed the change immediately. Fees that had been imposed without justification were reversed. Property inspections became transparent, and new regulations were explained clearly before they were enforced. Many citizens visited Ryan to express gratitude for his guidance. One morning, a small group of neighbors approached his property. They carried digital pads with questions and documents. "Ryan," said a farmer named Talon, "we never thought we could challenge the HOA, but you showed us that following the law and standing firm can protect us. Can you help us make sure our property is safe?" Ryan smiled gently. "Of course. The law exists to protect people, not to control them. I will help you organize your records and understand your rights. You do not need to fear unfair rules anymore." Over the next week, Ryan visited many households. He taught citizens how to maintain legal documents, verify boundaries, and protect their property. His guidance was simple but effective. Families who had once been afraid to speak out were now confident. The colony had begun a new era, one where knowledge and justice guided decisions instead of fear and control. Mara, meanwhile, remained isolated in her home, avoiding most citizens. She had sent a few assistants to the council to answer questions, but her reputation had been damaged. Rumors of her misused funds spread across Nova Ridge. Even residents who had once admired her strict enforcement now shook their heads at the records Ryan had revealed. Pride had brought her power, but greed had taken it away. One afternoon, Ryan received a message from the council. They requested his presence at a special meeting to discuss the long-term reorganization of the HOA. Ryan agreed, knowing that his participation could help ensure fairness for every resident. The council meeting was held in the central hall. Ryan entered calmly, carrying only his tablet with records of prior events. Council members greeted him warmly, appreciating his honesty and dedication. Citizens had also been invited to observe. Mara sat at the back, trying to appear composed but clearly tense. The council began the discussion. Nova Ridge has learned an important lesson, one member said. Authority must serve the people, not dominate them. We need a system that ensures transparency, accountability, and fairness. Mr. Ryan's actions have provided guidance for this reform. Ryan stood and spoke clearly. The most important part of a community is its people. Rules must protect residents, not control them. Transparency allows trust to grow. Knowledge gives everyone the chance to defend their rights. I recommend that all HOA actions be recorded, that funds be open for review, and that residents have access to independent verification of property boundaries and regulations. The council members nodded. Your recommendations are sound. We will implement a new charter for the HOA. It will focus on service and accountability rather than control. Every citizen will receive copies of all documents related to property and fees. Future leaders will be selected based on their commitment to fairness, not authority. Mara listened silently. Her face was pale and she looked down at her hands. Even her assistants avoided her gaze. Ryan did not speak to her. He did not need to. The council's words had made the outcome clear. Her attempts to control the colony were over. Over the next few days, citizens began receiving official documents from the council. Each homeowner had clear proof of their land, their rights, and the limits of HOA authority. Ryan helped residents understand the documents, explaining each section in simple terms. Families who had once feared fines or inspections now smiled with relief. The colony had regained its freedom, and Ryan's quiet courage had played a central role. One evening, Ryan walked through his garden as the suns dipped behind the hills. Children ran along the paths, laughing freely. Traders moved about with confidence, and farmers tended their crops without concern for arbitrary penalties. He paused near his fence, looking out across the open plains. The land seemed wider and more alive than before. It was a symbol not only of his freedom but of the colony's renewal. Talon approached with a small group of neighbors. Ryan, he said, we want to thank you. You showed us that standing for what is right can change everything. We feel safe now and our voices matter. Ryan smiled. You did this too. I only guided you. The courage to stand comes from within. You proved that humans can protect freedom when they know their rights and act together. The people nodded, their expressions filled with gratitude. In that moment, Ryan realized that the victory was not only his. It belonged to every resident who had dared to believe in fairness, to follow the law, and to challenge injustice without violence. In the following weeks, Nova Ridge began a slow transformation. The HOA restructured under the new charter, hiring leaders who prioritized service and fairness. Residents participated in regular meetings, discussing regulations openly and approving decisions with majority consent. Transparency became the norm. Community trust, once broken, was rebuilt. Ryan continued his life quietly. He worked in his garden, repaired solar panels, and read under the evening skies. Yet his presence was no longer that of a lone resident. People came to him for advice, guidance, and reassurance. He answered each request with patience and clarity, teaching others to protect themselves through knowledge rather than fear. One day, Mara returned to the colony council to apologize. Her voice was quiet and respectful. I see now that my actions were wrong, she said. I allowed pride and greed to guide me instead of fairness. I am sorry to all citizens of Nova Ridge and to Mr. Ryan. Ryan listened but did not respond immediately. He only nodded slightly. Apologies are valuable when they are sincere. Actions must follow words. I hope you will use your experience to serve the community instead of yourself. Mara left quietly, humbled and reflective. The citizens of Nova Ridge watched the exchange and understood that even those who had caused harm could change, if guided by reason and fairness. As the sun set on another peaceful day, Ryan stood near his fence looking out at the horizon. The wind carried the scent of wild herbs and fresh earth. Birds with silver feathers flew overhead, and the hum of the solar fence blended with the natural sounds of the colony. Ryan smiled to himself, knowing that his work had not only protected his property but had helped the entire colony find its voice. He returned to his home and sat at his desk. He wrote a short note for future settlers. Freedom is not given, it is protected. Justice exists when knowledge is applied with courage. Trust grows where transparency and fairness are honored. Nova Ridge stands as proof that humans can rise above fear and control to build a better future. In the following months, the colony thrived. Gardens flourished, homes were maintained with care, and children learned about justice and fairness as part of their education. Ryan's guidance helped the community avoid mistakes, and his calm, patient approach became a model for others to follow. Every evening, he walked his property, checking the fence, observing the garden, and enjoying the quiet beauty of the plains. He knew that challenges would come again. Life was never completely free of conflict. But he also knew that Nova Ridge had changed. Its people had learned that they could protect their rights, speak freely, and hold authority accountable. The colony had discovered that the greatest power was not control or fear, but knowledge, courage, and the willingness to act for what was right. The twin suns set slowly, casting long shadows over the hills and plains. Children's laughter echoed faintly in the distance. Farmers and traders continued their work. The air felt lighter than it had in years. Ryan looked at his home, his fence, and the land he had built with care and respect. He realized that this victory was not only about property or law. It was about humanity, about the ability of people to come together, uphold fairness, and create a future where everyone had the chance to live freely. He returned to his chair, closing his eyes and letting the soft hum of the solar fence calm his thoughts. For the first time in many months, he felt complete peace. The battle had been won. Not through anger or force, but through truth, knowledge, and patience. Nova Ridge was free, and its citizens now understood the power of standing for justice. As the stars appeared in the darkening sky, Ryan whispered softly to himself, "Freedom is worth defending. Justice is worth pursuing, and humans will always find a way to protect both." The colony slept peacefully, and for the first time it seemed that Nova Ridge could truly thrive, guided by law, fairness, and the courage of those willing to stand for what was right. The story of Ryan and the HOA spread quietly across nearby settlements. Other colonies began to take note,